The Finance Subcommittee of the City Council is comprised of 5 council members and considers any or all questions appropriate for the purpose of considering the budget, including the creation of new positions to the payroll, changes to the employee classification plan, or any matters pertaining to increasing the City of Framingham employee headcount. The following City Council Finance Subcommittee meeting coverage is brought to you by the Government Channel, a service of the City of Framingham.
The Finance Subcommittee meeting of January 26th, 2021. All members are present. This will be the beginning, a joint meeting with the Framingham Public Schools, Framingham School Committee Building and Ground Subcommittee. This is being broadcast live on FraminghamTV.com and being recorded and will be uploaded to Facebook later. And on the agenda, we have public participation, then the joint meeting where we'll be discussing the Framingham Public Schools capital budget requests and a turf field proposal for the Fuller Middle School. Then we'll have continued discussion on referral from City Council of solar panels at the McAuliffe Branch Library and then member prerogatives. And right now, I will turn it over to Mr. Wadlin if you wanted to call your subcommittee meeting to order.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the meeting of the Framingham Public Schools Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee to order at 7:17 p.m. Present tonight is District 3, Adam Freudberg, District 8, Jessica Barnhill, and myself, District 3, Scott Wadlin. Joining us tonight are Lincoln Lynch, our Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Matt Tordai, our Buildings and Grounds Director, and as well as James Snyder and Tom Bagan from Framingham Parks and Rec.
Thank you very much and welcome. And thank you for joining us. All right, so we'll start with public participation. You can raise your digital hand if you would like to speak. And I only see one right now. Mr. Bloomfield, you're recognized for up to 2 minutes.
Good evening. I'm flabbergasted and listening to the Plymouth Church proposal and how quickly that was approved. I just hope we covered all the bases there in terms of environmental safety with regards to that building being environmentally sound and safe for our children. I hope we informed our insurance underwriters that we're going to be having our children or some children in that space and employees. I can understand the need for the space. It's all based on the fact that we're actually going to go hybrid in February and so on and so forth. And hopefully we have a hold harmless clause in the contract in case there's any issues. What I was going to speak about, again, another week has gone by and still no solution to the city's financial crisis. You, as part of the Framingham Elected 21, are directly responsible to resolve these issues and post haste for us, please. I have, as the school committee knows, spoken with them, and whereas the school district is over 60% of the city's budget, that they are going to have to be a very big part of the solution. I don't know what we've gotten done in the past week relative to this matter. I've read a lot of stuff online as to what's happening that I didn't know, some behind-the-scenes kind of things. But we're really not moving fast enough. And it's unfortunate because we all know we're going to have the same situation in front of us next year and the year after. So we really have no choice but to get out in front of this as best possible.
10 seconds, Mr. Bloomfield.
Say it again?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. I'm just going to leave it at that because I've spoken a lot about this issue, and now I'm waiting for some results. Phil Antabiani had a good...
Thank you, Mr. Bloomfield. All right, I don't see any other folks for public participation. No I don't see any other hands raised. All right, so I don't know if, Mr. Wadland, if you have a preference as to what order to discuss these items on the agenda. We have the turf fields first.
Yeah, I would prefer if we cover that first, just so we can release Mr. Snyder and Mr. Bagan afterwards.
All right, that sounds good. So would somebody like to give us an overview of the request?
Sure. The information was in your packet, so I won't do you the disservice of reading it to you. But essentially, the Framingham Public Schools and the Framingham Parks and Rec Department are looking to submit a joint capital request for the creation of 2 artificial turf fields at the new Fuller Middle School. We have worked out between the school department and the Parks and Rec how we will operate such a facility going forward. Essentially, it will be owned and maintained by Parks and Rec, and they will also have an opportunity to rent it out to the community to generate revenue to offset the operating and construction costs. However, there will be specific times during the week, during the school year, where the school department has primary use of the field, which will be a tremendous benefit to our interscholastic athletics, as well as a benefit to the community. As I said, Mr. Bagan and Mr. Snyder and Mr. Tordai are here and can answer any specific questions that you may have about the plan. However, one thing I should note is that it was our intention when we submitted this to be a net new capital request independent of the Framingham Public Schools capital needs and the Parks and Rec capital needs. This is really what I would consider a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to install artificial turf fields at the school instead of natural grass, because in the future we find it highly unlikely that the city would choose to rip up natural turf fields to put in artificial. So this is one of these things, if we don't do it now, we will likely never do it. And our community won't have the opportunity to realize the benefit that such a facility could provide. So with that, I will take any questions. And again, we have multiple folks here who can provide insight on anything that the committee might wish to discuss.
Thank you. Are there councilor questions, comments? Councilor Stewart-Morales.
Ready. On the turfs, I do have. I'm wondering. There's other communities that have had really in-depth discussions about the environmental impacts of installing artificial turf. I'm wondering if that's been touched upon in any of your conversations so far.
I will say it has been, and then I'll defer to Mr. Tordai and Mr. Bagan. Primarily, the concern about those fields has to do with the infill material that they actually put in between the blades of grass. But I'll let Mr. Tordai and Mr. Bagan comment further on what products we're looking to specify for this installation.
Thank you, Mr. Wadland. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us this evening. So I am certainly not an expert. I would defer to Mr. Bagan as he had more information on the type of materials that are used. But I know even when we did the high school turf field there, we made sure that it was eco-friendly, and there was a lot of discussion about the crumb rubber that's used to give the field the cushioning and keep the blades vertical on the fields, and that was found to have some toxins in other fields, not in ours. And so we're very mindful of the types of materials. And Mr. Bagan, if you would like to expand upon that, please feel free to jump in anytime. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Tordai, and thank you for the question, Councilor Stewart-Morales. One of the main focuses on our end for the turf field, both at this location and Mary Dennison and the project in the grand scheme of things, has been this question with PFAS. And there's a couple vendors out there who offer PFAS-free products. And what the PFAS is is that I'll use my fingers as just kind of the example, but the fibers or the grass blades get washed at some point. And in the past, they were washed with a chemical that was attaching to the blades themselves. And there's a company out there, Field Turf, that when they wash it, they don't utilize that chemical anymore. So it's PFAS free. And that's been a focus of ours to be able to do both the fields here and in the future at Mary Dennison with that type of product so that we could eliminate that concern.
Thank you. Do you want to follow up, Councilor Stewart-Morales?
Please. So I have heard of that concern, but there's some other environmental issues as well. For example, I think one of the concerns is about once this material is removed at some future date, the disposal of that, will that be done in an environmentally friendly way? And some communities or some people who use this turf incorporate like a fee or something that, some money that's kept in escrow or to help with those, help ensure that we really do dispose of it in an environmentally friendly way. Another thing that I've heard is about just any life that's currently residing in that dirt or that receives sustenance from that grass. Obviously that, that's not going to happen anymore. So I'm wondering why are we going this route as opposed to using natural turf?
Thank you.
I'll take a stab at that one,
sure,
if I may. The main reason that we are recommending artificial turf field is that it has been engineered and the technology's come a long way to address all of the environmental concerns. And also, a natural grass field needs at least 2 growing seasons before it's playable. So the artificial turf field, once it goes in, it's playable right away. And so if we don't put in an artificial turf field, there will be literally no fields to play except for the Galvani complex, which is over by the State Police Barracks, quite a distance from the Fuller School. So we felt that we could certainly support the idea of the artificial turf fields based on that. Hopefully that answers your questions, Mr. Morales.
I'd be happy to add, I have a bunch of information on the need for natural or turf field compared to natural turf. If you'd like, I can provide some of that information, because when we started talking about this, we did talk about the fact that there is a real lack of turf fields in this community. There's one turf field at the high school, and that turf field, and I don't want to speak for the athletic director, but that turf field is stretched out amongst his entire athletic program. And then when you mix in youth sports, youth organizations, and other organizations inside the community, there's a real squeeze on one field. That usage also adds to the wear and tear of that field and decreases the life of that field. So we look at, and collectively, in the we is Matt and myself and Jim and the school committee and everybody involved with the field process on school properties, we look at what the best opportunity for turf fields are in this location. And right now, when we look at what's offered in Framingham compared to other communities, for instance, other schools in the Bay State League, which also play for our youth sports, against our youth sports, Weymouth has 7 turf fields, Walpole has 4, Wellesley and Needham both have 3, Braintree, Natick, and Brookline each have 2. So there's a real disadvantage for our athletes, both at the high school and at the youth level, and access for the high school and the youth level. From a natural field playing surface aspect, we, from the Parks Department, can't release fields typically on an average between the 3rd and the 4th week of April. We can't speed up drying of the fields. We can't slow down winter weather conditions that add to the wetness of the fields in the spring. We're tied into Mother Nature. So unfortunately, we can't allow kids out on natural fields until 3rd to 4th week in April. And that puts them both at the high school and the youth level at a real disadvantage, and also takes away some real access opportunities for them at fields. So when we talk about these fields, and school committee member Scott Wadlin nailed it, that this is a great opportunity. This is a blank slate. We can go out there, we can build 2 beautiful turf fields that'll provide access to soccer, football, lacrosse, field hockey at the high school, at the youth level, the community level. It's a great opportunity. There's 1,700 student athletes at the high school that can take advantage of this, and there's also upwards of 4,000 athletes in youth sports that'll be able to take advantage of this. So these fields will have a huge community impact and allow early season access and late season access as well.
Thank you. And don't forget about softball too. I know how
Yes, I'm sorry, softball.
painful it's been for
too. It's
those
great
teams.
for early season access for that too, to be able to play pitch, catch, and just light batting practice too. So thank you, Councilor Stein, for that.
You're welcome. I've definitely heard about the competitive disadvantage from our softball teams. Chairman Freudberg, did you have a quick comment? And then I see Councilor Cannon and Councilor Leombruno.
I'll defer to the council first, but you could recognize me after the council if you don't mind.
Sure. Councilor Cannon and then Councilor Leombruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councilor Freudberg. One of the questions that I'm asked often about our park and recreation assets is why don't we use Bowditch more frequently, or why can't we use Bowditch more frequently? And the answer always seems to come back, it's because it's natural grass, and that's the challenge that comes with natural grass. So I think the timing of this request is absolutely sound, because just knowing Framingham, if we don't do this now from the beginning, we'll just never find the resources. We'll never find the capacity or the bandwidth to do this. So I appreciate the school committee being proactive here, because to have to clean this up down the road is going to be more costly, and we'll have another asset in our community that we don't get to use as frequently as we'd like. So I find this to be well thought out and something I would certainly support. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor Cannon. Councilor Leombruno.
So I think the same thing. As a long time, forever it seems coaching in Framingham, I coach in Little League, I coach Babe Ruth all the way up to Senior Babe, and I can tell you, we've always been at a disadvantage for fields. And then when I went to softball with my daughter for that couple of years, they seem to be even worse. No offense, I'm not picking on Park and Rec. It's kind of, unfortunately, you have clay fields. And I do know that we do a lot with our fields. For what we have for space, we really do the best we can, but we have always been at a disadvantage when it comes to turf fields. And I remember from 10, 15 years ago, going to other communities with turf fields, and they are absolutely something that we, I think it would be a huge disadvantage to not. I mean, nobody does, if you have the advantage, if you have the opportunity, you do a turf field. So I think that, I support that too. I think that if you guys weren't going to do them, I would probably ask why you wouldn't. So I fully support that as well. And I think it's it puts us at a huge disadvantage just for the early, and not only, as a long ago coaching, I remember getting in, getting not in fights, but you got into arguments with the people from Park and Rec, because all your coaches would be out on these fields and there'd be nowhere to play. So I wish we could do a few more, to be honest. So, keep that in mind.
Thank you. Councilor King and then Chairman Freudberg.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're way behind as far as getting turf fields into this community. And, I think that's one area that our park and rec facilities, which are well supported and well put together over the years, did kind of fall behind a little bit. And I would just echo, and not for tonight, but for future discussion, I think the Bowditch discussion is still in play. I mean, I think we should consider, I know there's issues there with the dimensions and things like that, but I still think that's something we should consider there, because it makes no sense to me that we built an $8 million infrastructure to play on a very limited number of fields. That's where, the investment of a turf field there would increase the value of the infrastructure there substantially in my mind. So, but I definitely support this motion.
Thank you. Chairman Freudberg.
Thank you, Chairman Steiner, and also Chairman Wadland, for working together on this joint meeting. As many councilors already spoke to, and the great leadership of our Parks and Buildings and Grounds Department, the gaps in the city athletic offerings, the weather challenges, the lower competitive edge that was outlined in the memo as well as spoken tonight. I just wanted to foot stomp that. This is also a total team effort, and I really want to make sure that it's not just the school committee, it's not just the city council that we're with tonight and the CFO and the mayor and the Parks Department putting this in the capital plan. It's the Parks and Recreation Commission also voted 3-0 for this, and this also was recommended by the school building committee. And I want to recognize Chair of the school building committee, Dave Miles, who's here tonight. This has been on many agendas of the school building committee, and thank you to Chairman Miles for the multiple times that we spent as a building committee that Mr. Wadland and I are both on. And we really walked through a lot of the concerns that have been addressed tonight, including environmental. The building project, just like any addition to the Fuller project, requires a thorough review consistent with the MSBA statute and regulations. The building has already qualified for more of a state reimbursement due to the solar and the other energy efficient measures. So to Councilor Stuart Morales' point, we take the environmental issues extremely seriously. And if there's more to do to make sure that the long-term aspect of maintenance and beyond, absolutely, that's a valid point. And then finally, I'll just again thank everyone involved for this and note that because of the school building committee aspect of the partnership, the project before you is actually slightly cheaper than it would be if we were doing this on our own, because the current Fuller budget already approved already has certain aspects budgeted for the grass fields, as well as the underground infrastructure, sewer, water, and so forth, drainage, that makes this project less than what it is for the request before you for consideration. So again, thank you to all public bodies involved. I think we're now up to 4 public bodies involved and the multiple departments that have teamed up.
Thank you. Mr. Miles, did you want to make a comment or?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Steiner. I'm co-chair of the school building committee. I'm here in a semi-official capacity. I'm not here to advocate one way or the other. It's not my role to do that. I'll leave that to the committee. I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just want everybody to know that the vote for the new Fuller School included grass fields in the $98 million. That's why we're talking about we have to bring an additional request to have turf fields put in case anybody didn't understand why we're doing that. I'm also concerned about the timeline. Even though the fields can't be built until the old Fuller building is demolished and removed, and that's not going to happen until late this fall. So we might not even start on these fields constructing them until maybe after the new year, even though we're just started a new year. But we do have to start planning for that soon. So I'm here mostly to make sure that we can get a decision on this. And I know we have to go through the Park and Rec submission also to get the whole 3.2. But I just want to see if there's any way we can move this to the front of the line when we're making decisions, because we do have to start planning turf vis-a-vis grass fields in the near future, maybe even the May-June timeframe. So I'm hoping that we can get a vote one way or the other decided by that time so we can plan ahead. We don't want to go down the road of having to build a grass field only to learn later that where turf field has been approved. That'll just be a waste of money and time. So, I'm just curious if I could ask a question while I'm here. I saw the documentation for the school department submission on the agenda, and it said the request from the school department is 1.6 million, which is half of the total request, 3.2. And I assume the other 1.6 will be coming from Park and Rec. So will that be a separate meeting and a separate discussion and a separate vote, or how are you going to handle the 2 separate $1.6 million amounts? I was wondering about that.
Ms. Kelly, you want to clarify that? Thank you.
I'm glad this came up. This isn't half a request. The entire $3.2 million request is one request. For the purposes of allocating, so every year in the capital budget, we work with the school department to try and have a target for capital. That target is about $3.2 million. Now, if we just stuck with that target as the one target for the capital budget, the 3.2 target would have been all eaten up by the Fuller Field. The $1.6 million is really just for the purposes of setting the target. So when you look at this, at the capital budget total on the capital budget website, it really looks like the school department recommended capital is $4.9 million, simply because that authorization for Fuller Field will be one authorization. They're not going to be half and half, Dave. It's one $3.2 million authorization. But for the purposes of trying to spread out what's being recommended, we didn't want to penalize the school department for a $3.2 million goal and have it all get eaten up by Fuller Field, hence the 1.6 million. So it's same thing with the park department. It's like, all right, so if we allocate this project across what we're going to recommend in total for purposes of trying to balance out who gets what, that's what it's for. It's literally not funding one half of the project somewhere else. It was literally just for trying to figure out budget targets.
Great. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you. Other councilor comments, questions? Councilor Stuart Morales.
Yeah, to follow up on that, is there, so the proposal that the documentation that we got from the school committee subcommittee today has, it looked like we had moved $1.6 million into a different line item within that budget. So is that an additional request that's going to come from the mayor at some point, or?
No, it's all included in the bottom line. Sorry, I wasn't recognized. Sorry.
You can go ahead. Thank you.
The total bottom line of the projects is the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. So it isn't like we aren't doing a separate capital request from Park and Rec. Fuller Field is 3.2 million. It's Fuller Field. We're recommending it into the citywide capital budget. We're just not allocating all of the target goal for the school department to the school department. So if we did that, it would have been, if we were aiming to fund $3.2 million of the school's $11 million request, 8 million of which was very school specific, then we would have nothing else. But obviously we tried to get into funding some of their priority lists. We funded all of their number one priority and worked with them to work out what the number two item was going to be in addition to the Fuller Field. So that's literally, it's literally just decision making. We aren't splitting the project in half. But again, for the purposes of allocating capital within all of the departments, we've always set a target for the school department to try and fund or recommend $3.2 million worth of investment. And we would have nothing left after Fuller Field if we allocated all of that 3.2 million to their target. So we only allocated half. It gets confusing, but it's literally just for target sharing. That's all. The project is the whole project. And we have another $1.6 million worth of the school's priority list recommended. And it's all there together.
I'm sorry if I could follow up.
Sure.
So I guess I'm confused because there's the roof repairs at the Farley building, $1.8 million. I don't see that on the capital budget that the mayor submitted. And
it's not. So our recommendation was the 600,000 and 1.1 million for the first two priorities. That's actually 1.5 of the priorities. That's what we agreed to. The Farley roof is coming up as a secondary discussion. And so that's continuing discussion, but that wasn't part of the agreement that we made with the school group to fund it's actually $3.3 million worth of investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Steiner, if I could.
Sure, Mr. Wadland, and then Chairman Freudberg.
I just want to address Ms. Kelly's comments about the mayor's recommendation being in agreement with the school committee. It was presented to myself and Mr. Freudberg, and I believe Mr. Lynch, that the mayor was going to be recommending the 3.2 million for the Fuller turf field, and then I think it comes up to 1.9 million 1.7 million for the feasibility study. And we were asked how we would like to account for that 1.1 million above and beyond the feasibility study. So we said, well, we'll put that towards the next priority in line. So I just want to make an important distinction between an agreement and a recommendation. What you have and you receive from the mayor is the mayor's recommendation. We were told that that was what was going to be recommended, and we were asked how we would like to allocate that money, but the school committee at no point in time agreed to that number.
Thank you. And I think we'll go to Chairman Feuerberg. I think it would make sense in a minute to just, get a little overview of the capital requests in addition to the turf field, unless there are other questions specific to the turf field. Chairman Feuerberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think in a moment maybe is the time to transition to that, so we can talk about the Farley building and the rest of it. But Mr. Wadland kind of explained it, as well as our memo, and kind of where the process was and how the mayor and CFO offered the school committee an opportunity to send a revised request once we knew the budget. And we did ask for one project that we'll get into in a moment that was outside of that. But back to the turf fields, we were just talking about the discrepancy in how the 1.6 was listed. I wrote that memo. I take the responsibility. I'm sorry if there were a couple words that should have been tweaked. It was based on the Parks Commission letter calling it a joint field, as well as some previous public meetings we had where we always referred to a joint project. But thank you to Ms. Kelly for answering Mr. Miles' question and making it clear that it is fully funded. However, the budget line items line up. Doesn't matter to me, as long as we can get a turf field for our kids in our community is the ultimate end goal. So thank you, Ms. Kelly, for that clarification.
Thank you. Are there any other lingering questions about the turf field? I just had one last one about just the funding. Is there a possibility there will be contingency funds in the building project that would help to defray the cost of that?
So I can let Mr. Miles add some additional commentary, as he is the chair of the school building committee. But at this point, the way I would characterize it is there may be additional contingency funds, but at this point, we don't know. We still have to demolish the existing Fuller building, and we don't know what we don't know and what we will uncover when we do that. So the school building committee very prudently, took no decision or took no action in terms of allocating part of that contingency towards this project.
Okay, makes sense. Mr. Miles, did you want to add anything?
That pretty much sums it up. Yeah, we do have to, it's a 200,000 square foot building, and you never know what you're going to find there. We already found some peat, for example, in some of the surrounding soil. And if we find something like that, it could cost, good amount of money to remediate that. You never know what else we're going to find in an old building. So you can't guarantee it. There may very well be. I don't know if there's a way to work out a contingency on the contingency, but we can't guarantee it, certainly.
Understood.
Question, no.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other hands raised for the turf project. So did you want to run through the other capital requests?
Sure. Again, this was all in the packet, so I won't go into great detail on any of them, but we will certainly, happy to answer any and all questions. The first is $600,000 for the MSBA feasibility study for a future early childhood and elementary school. So this is following on the heels of a pre-feasibility study that was completed by TBA Architects in the summer and fall of 2019. It reviewed the Hemingway Elementary School, as well as a property south of Route 9 for the next major school project. And you'll actually see, if you look at some of the longer term capital planning documents, both from the school department and from the CFO, they do anticipate an additional school project at some point in the future. As a quick aside, given the number of buildings in our portfolio that total, I think it's just shy of 2 million square feet, But given the number of buildings and the approximate life expectancy of a building, in reality, we should be doing a school construction or renovation, every 5 to 7 years, depending upon what you use for a life expectancy. So for folks who are saying, geez, didn't we just have this discussion about Fuller? Yes, it is time to get back into the pipeline because it might take some time before we're able to partner with the MSBA again. So that's the MSBA feasibility study. The second is the exterior improvements at Walsh Middle School. This is in the mayor's recommendation, $1.1 million. It was reduced from our initial request of $2.1 million. This is basically work that we have to do every year across all the buildings in our portfolio. It's roof repair, walls, windows, doorways. As Mr. Tordai says, we try to keep the warm air in and keep the weather out, and provide a safe and appropriate place to provide education for our students and employment for our employees. So this is an ongoing, battle to maintain these properties. The athletic field we talked about, and then the fourth one, which is, as Ms. Kelly pointed out, above and beyond the mayor's recommendation, but was in our initial request, is roof repairs at the Farley building. The Farley Middle School roof is in very poor condition. It was replaced, I think it was 20 years or so ago, when Mass Bay started leasing the property. That roof was actually funded by DCAM, and the value of that work was deducted from the rent that Mass Bay paid to the city in the first few years of that lease. But at this point, there is significant repair work needed on that building because of moisture on the deck, deterioration of the substrate, and rusting of the infrastructure. The Farley School is becoming more and more critical to the operation of the Framingham Public Schools as Mass Bay continues to move out. The Farley School is being used to house the Buildings and Grounds Department, which is being displaced from Fuller. It will be housing the offices for adult ESL. It will be housing the Parent Information Center, all the ancillary functions that are now contained in the existing Fuller building. We need a new home for them. And longer term, there is a vision that part of the Farley building could become sort of a middle Framingham, or a midtown early childhood center. So it's important that we continue to invest in this building so that it doesn't fall into complete disrepair.
Thank you. Councilor, comments, questions? Chairman Freudberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chairman Wadland. In your packets, I just wanted to really flag one document the school committee spent a lot of time on, and that is at the end of one of the hyperlinks on the roof spreadsheet. And the reason that the school committee asked for this project above and beyond the mayor's original recommendation was we're just really worried about the continued deferment. This is the second time the Farley roof has been deferred. Right now, the cost is $1.8 million. Next year, it goes up to $1.9 million. The following year, $2 million. The following year, $2.175 million. Cost escalation is a major concern of ours. Additionally, as we try to get one roof done per year, if the Farley roof is deferred again, what does that mean next year when we need to do the Dunning roof and the Potter Road roof? So it's just part of this continued roof-related domino effect that it's no one's fault. It's just the actual life of a roof, and it's something that needs repairs. It's a health and safety issue and beyond about why you need these roofs, so these buildings stay safe and stay online for our community. So as you consider everything that you do in the capital plan, I know you need a holistic approach, and I would ask that you consider the tax impact of a deferral. not only what the total cost of the project is, but what is the cost to bond it this year, and what is the cost to bond it next year, or the year after, or the year after, and what is the average cost to the taxpayer for that bonding cost this year, or if we defer it next year and next year and next year as the costs continue to rise. So those are the type of discussions that have been the centerpiece of school committee meeting agenda items, and I just wanted to flag that for you and give some background on why we included that roof spreadsheet. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what's striking to me in that roof spreadsheet is that on average, it looks like we need to be spending $2-3 million a year just to keep up with this. Otherwise, it's just going to build up and there's going to be additional cost later. I was wondering about, there's the expiration date, and several of them have, lined up to 2023. And then there's some that are even before that. How did we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 roofs expiring in 2023?
Mr. Chair, I'd love to answer that question. So roughly 3.5 years ago, Ms. Kelly and I ventured into how we could extend and keep deferring this maintenance. And we entered into a program for a warranty extension with the roofing manufacturer. And we were able to take 7 of the roofs on these schools and extend the warranty by 5 years by investing about $400,000 at that time. And so we did that, but now here we are 2.5 years into it, and the warranties are all coming off roughly at the same time. Each building is a little different. Some conditions worse than others. So it's not necessarily just the age of the roof, it's also the condition of the roof. The other thing is that the MSBA typically would fund up to 59% or whatever our reimbursement rate is for any given year, reimbursement for these projects, but they extended the age requirement from 20 years. It went up to 22 years, and it went to 25 years, and now they're at 27 years. And so those roofs, they're not 27 years old, but in some cases, such as Farley, it's critical that we address it. The other thing is that if we don't fund this, as Chairman Freudberg pointed out, it's a year, not only a year in the arrears, but we receive the funding this year. If we get the funding by May, June, or July 1, then you have to go through the design process, and then you have to go through the bid process. And so the soonest, if it's deferred this year, it wouldn't get done next year. And so you're looking at 3 years. And so 3 years from now, the condition of the roof is going to be such that we'll be performing a lot more repairs we do now. We're averaging somewhere between 50 and 70 leaks per year on some of these buildings. And so because the warranty is expired, now we're paying for that out of the operating budgets.
Thank you. Councilor comments, questions. Councilor Stuart Morales.
Mr. Chair, as a matter of process at this point, I'm wondering, is the school committee and the school administration continuing to speak with the mayor on adding this item to the capital plan? Or I mean, I know we're not able to add it for them. Okay, I just
wanted Kelly is nodding for the record.
Yes, I see that. I just want to make sure I knew what the ask was of the city council at this point.
Yeah. Chairman Freudberg.
Thank you. Just briefly on this. Yes, the mayor was with us at the meeting together when we made this request, so she's well aware of the extra request. Additionally, it actually doesn't require a separate appropriation request. The city council did this last year. It's confirmed by the assistant city solicitor, Chris Brown, that this does not require anything separate. So the city council has the prerogative in the capital plan to do this. You did it last year with another one of our requests that was not in the mayor's capital plan. So thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Councilor Stuart Morales.
I assume that's a reference to the local option that we exercised on Chapter 329, Acts of 1987, that we can increase a budget. Is that what
No.
Adams, or what
No.
Mr. Ford was referring to?
Chairman Freudberg, you want to clarify that?
Nope, that's only for the operating budget, and that's separate. This is specifically, there is no provision for capital plans like that. So while we really appreciate the continued work with Ms. Kelly and Mayor Spicer, this is something that does not require a separate filing. Obviously, we prefer it, but just like the council voted last year on a school committee project that was not on the mayor's plan, that was funded by the city council because we asked for something last year as well above. You have that opportunity. And again, we understand the totality of capital requests citywide. Absolutely. It's our job as a school committee to advocate and bring things forward. And that's, again, why this roof spreadsheet was so critical for the school committee. We really want to make sure we prioritize roofs to the best of our ability so we don't get into trouble years down the road, both from a public safety perspective and also, as important as well, the fiscal perspective and the cost escalation of what deferring year after year after year does. Just wanted to reiterate that. So thank you for the questions.
Thank you. I mean, I would just say that, roofs in general, I think that, you're playing with fire with roofs. And I know, and I have personal experience with this in Maynard, where I arrived after there was an issue with a roof leak that led to mold issues and led to asbestos. And, it took more money to clean that up and then end up replacing the roof anyway, but also the impact on morale in a sense that, it's not a safe environment. It's something that's, lingering and certainly the current circumstances are not helping with that. So I take the roof. I mean, all the requests are important, but roof requests definitely hit home for me. Mr. Wadlin?
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to build on your earlier comment about, from that roof spreadsheet, you can see that it's, that this is a yearly investment that we really need to be making in order to, provide a safe, place for our students and for our employees. I also want to tie it back to a comment that Ms. Kelly made earlier. Granted, this is a problem to be answered another day, but I think it's important to consider the big picture because Ms. Kelly talked about a target investment of $3.2 million per year for the school department. When you look at anywhere from $1.5 to $2.5 million for a roof, unless you're talking about Walsh, which is $4 million, or the high school, which is $7 million. Then you add in, $1 million to $2 million of other building envelope work. So windows, doors, masonry, ceiling, repointing, all those types of things. Then you add in ADA improvements, which, the school committee is committed, perhaps now, more than ever to, try and do what we need to do from an ADA perspective. You have asbestos abatement within the schools. You can very quickly see how $3.2 million gets, spent in the blink of an eye. So again, that's a longer term problem, that I think we as a entire community have to collaborate on in terms of how we start filling in this hole that we've dug for ourselves when it comes to deferred capital investment. But I think it's important to consider that even as you're making decisions just for FY21, or sorry, 22.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilor comments. All right. I don't see any hands raised. Any final thoughts from members of the school committee or Mr. Torda or? Nope. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight. I appreciate it. And we will keep you updated on our further discussions on the topic.
Thank you.
Chairman Freyberg, are you raising your hand to speak or?
To make a motion to adjourn, if I need to move, I would like to make a motion that the school committee approve the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee minutes listed on our agenda and adjourn it with the same vote.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freyberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Barnhill. Roll call vote. Mr. Freyberg?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhill?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The school committee Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee is adjourned at 8:04 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Great to see everyone.
Take care. All right. Next on our agenda is a topic that was delayed regarding the solar energy project at the McAuliffe Branch Library. I believe that the city solicitor has joined us, and Ms. Pratt is also here, and Mr. Luce. So I'll open it up to Councillor, and Mr. Paolini. Thank you for joining us. Are there any councillor comments or questions? Councillor Cannon.
Yes, thank you. And thanks everybody for being here. I know this is a topic of discussion that's been, I know all of you have worked very hard to get us to this point, and I'm sorry to be throwing in some questions that perhaps could have been asked earlier in the process. I guess before I get into the weeds, help me understand how we got to the point of deciding that we would do a PPA instead of buying our own system. PPAs are very common for residential power, those type of agreements, because they shift the financial burden from a resident to the solar company, and they're very lucrative for the solar company. But as a municipality, help me understand why that's the best solution for us.
Mr. Luce, did you want to comment on that?
Probably more of a question for Ms. Pratt or Ms. Kelly.
Well, I'll leave it up to them. Mr. Luce had his hand raised. So.
Oh, I didn't see that. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, Council Chair and councilors. I think it really comes down to, we looked at a number of options for solar energy systems for municipal facilities. PPAs offer us a significant advantage, and there's many municipalities that use them to explore solar. One of them is that there are certain, and I probably mentioned it a bunch in the prior meeting, but one of the major advantages is that they have certain financial advantages compared to the city trying to purchase the equipment outright and installing it. One of them is the various tax advantages that can be incorporated within the power purchase agreement with companies and procurement options like power options. Another is
I'm sorry. Let me drill down, as I have some questions as you go on. What are those tax benefits?
So there's a federal tax credit that's offered for solar energy systems that the city, obviously wouldn't be able to monetize on its own, that can be taken advantage of by solar developers. So that's often a significant portion of a solar energy project, the value of a solar energy project. And it allows, essentially that value can feed into the power purchase agreement rate that a city like Framingham would pay. And it allows us to get a reduced rate for energy while also not having to provide the upfront capital to install the system.
And that's where I have, Ms. Kelly or Ms. Pratt, what is what's the value of that tax benefit to the municipality? And PPAs, Mr. Luce hit it on the head. What he just outlined, while there's no upfront investment, that's huge for residents and that's huge for commercial developers. And the reason that PPAs are so profitable for solar developers is because they take the risk of a commercial developer, a commercial customer, or a resident not being able to pay. There's risk, so the reward, the upside is great for them. A municipality has pretty steady means and is a very low credit risk. So help me understand the benefit of the tax advantages that Mr. Luce referenced and how we weighed buying our own system, which is not difficult, versus doing a PPA, which is very broad stroke easy, no upfront investment. But when you dig into it, I'm trying to see how this long-term is a good thing for us. I'm being a particular stickler on this one because this, in all likelihood, will be the template for how we do all our other solar agreements. So if we do one, then it's a great deal for the solar developers, but not a great deal for Framingham long-term. We're going to end up doing a bunch of these with the same results. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in my questions.
So we're not eligible for the tax. We can't take the tax credit. So that wouldn't come to us to reduce the overall cost of the investment. The energy company gets the tax credit, and the incentives are directed towards the energy companies themselves. So we would pay basically retail for the solar panels, and we would get the same discount essentially on the rate, where we would be, avoiding using the energy, but we don't get the tax credit. So we're going to save directly on this program from the delivery charges, because we would be using the energy. I'm going to say this wrong. Behind the meter or in front of the meter, Sean? Behind the meter.
Behind the meter.
Behind the meter. So we won't. So we'll also save on the energy delivery charges that we won't pay to Eversource, but we don't get any tax credits to help us offset the cost of the investment to in the purchase of the facility, and the PPA then offers us energy at less than we're currently paying, and we have no cost of maintenance or operation of the system. That's all included in the PPA on the shoulders of the energy company.
Right, but just to follow up, Ms. Kelly, so I'm confused on two things. So the tax benefit that was kind of the main bullet point in his comments, that doesn't apply. That's out altogether? That does not apply?
It doesn't apply to... It doesn't apply to us. So the tax credit, we can't take advantage of the tax credit. Those credits are only made available to the energy company, the private energy company.
So the operation of the system and the maintenance of the system is often in place, just depending whether we buy the panels or do a PPA. Often it's the same solar vendor that's operating the system. To me, it sounds like we haven't really looked at that, which I'm not being super critical of that, because I think, when you're trying to get something to the finance subcommittee, to have the bullet point of being able to say there's no upfront cost from the city, that's a plus. But since this is the first one that we're doing, since this is going to be one of many that we're doing, and since these are long-term agreements that if they're done right, they can be very lucrative for us. If they're done the wrong way, they will be very lucrative for the developer. I just don't know if we've vetted buying our own system. And that's okay if we haven't, but I would like that to be done before we sign off on this deal, because very easily I see this coming to us as project number 2, and the summary will be, we're just using the same terms that we've done before. So if we haven't truly vetted all of that, and if everybody that's in attendance tonight is not on the same page, maybe we could come back after vetting all of the different options. And if it remains strong that we do a PPA, great. If the climate of the marketplace has changed and the terms are not as favorable or more favorable, or whatever the case may be, that may be a way to go, because it just doesn't sound like everybody's on the same page here, and it doesn't look like all of the options have been recently explored.
Thank you. Councilor Stewart-Morales.
Mr. Chair, I guess, if I'd like to hear from people here, if I don't see, the only person that I see that's not on the same page is Councilor Cannon. I don't see that as being a recurring theme amongst the people who've talked about this to us. I mean, I guess we've really only heard from the sustainability coordinator, but is there any hesitation from the administration side that we haven't done our due diligence on this contract?
And just to add to that, was the option to purchase panels versus a PPA explored, and what was the thinking on that equation between those two options?
We didn't look at buying our own equipment, because this is the most cost-effective way, really, for municipalities to get their projects done and still have the advantage of not having an upfront cost. This is a conventional program that municipalities use. So they're procured as part of group procurements, some of them through some state agencies, some through the state level, some through the feds. but this has been accessed by multiple municipalities, this program, and is affordable for us, and it's a way to get solar investment and invest in solar at a cost that for the city will save us money. Not just, one project, but, a couple of projects, 2 or 3 projects. But in general, when you're looking at the municipal investment in solar, they're doing it through PPAs and they're doing it through companies like these.
Thank you. Councillor Cannon?
Yes, well, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I mean, I think any, bookkeeper would want to see give me a side by side. This is a 20-year agreement. If we bought the system, what would it cost? What would the savings be? If we do this, which is in essence a rental, what is the cost? So I don't know how we're definitively coming to the conclusion that this is the best way to do it for Framingham if we haven't done that side by side analysis. If that's been done, I'd just like to see it. It doesn't sound like it's been done, and I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time. I would probably, being in your situation, and this is how these solar developers go to municipalities. Municipalities that often don't have the resources that Framingham has. And I like the idea that there's no upfront cost. However, I'd want to know what my options are. Hey, Mike, this is going to cost us a little bit of money up front, but over the course of 20 years, it's going to save the taxpayers of Framingham X. Versus if we do it, you know what I mean? I just don't have those very basic fundamentals. And I don't know what I don't know about solar, but these are reasonable questions that for a 20-year agreement, I'd like to understand and have some confidence that they've been explored.
Thank you. Councilor Stewart-Morales, did you want to continue? I think maybe.
Yeah, I think, what the CFO said, I think deserves a little bit of highlighting is that the way that this contract has been procured is that we've gone through power options, which is a large group of municipalities and nonprofit organizations that pull together to use some leverage, to create some leverage when they're doing these creating these negotiations with utilities. And so I think that's very important in this process. I mean, the reason that those organizations exist and are successful is because the local church isn't going to be isn't going to have expertise and maybe the resources to reach out to a lawyer to help them through complicated negotiations on power purchase agreements. And so that's why organizations go through organizations like Power Options. I think that's really important to note here is that there's a large pool of participants in that, and they've gotten to the point where they've negotiated these kinds of agreements. There's a template for them, and that is what it looks like we have done as a community. So I wouldn't expect to see all kinds of like an RFP and all kinds of different quotes, because that's what going through this program, I think, is intended. One of the benefits is that you avoid that. But anybody can please, from the administration, if I misspoke on something, please chime in.
Thank you. Is this project ready to roll? Upon Finance Subcommittee and City Council approval? Are we standing between these panels actually being put up on a roof? Mr. Paolini, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, the project is ready to move forward, but there's several caveats that haven't been discussed here this evening, and I'd like to make a couple points if you allow me, Chair.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. We examined what other municipalities were doing, what other municipalities did successful. and then we evaluated from that point. This wasn't a haphazard advance. Sean has been working diligently for over a year. We've treaded multiple contractors up and down on the municipal structures that we do own. And as you previously heard, how valuable roof space is, and it needs to be upgraded and secure. We don't have multiple roofs to put solar on. So, and the McAuliffe project, was a little challenging for the fact of the matter of the construction type, with the pitched and vaulted roof. Shading is implied, and I don't want to get on a tangent with that, but there's a very big point that I think, and Mike made a very, very solid point. There's a big point. There's a cost factor of the decommissioning of these panels, which the city does not have any obligation in this contract. It solely sits with the vendor. And to put a price tag on that now for 20 years in advance, it's almost impossible. We could do dollar for dollar value of what probably electricity cost is, but at some point in time, that balloon payment is going to have to be paid. The decommissioning after the lifespan of these panels are 20 years, and they're going to have to, that cost is going to have to be factored in somewhere. And I don't even know if you could even project it at this stage right now, because whether it be classified as hazardous material or how it would be recycled in 20 years. No one has a crystal ball to look into the future. We were trying to accommodate and move forward to try to make as green as possible and save the city funding, which this project does. And, when you start looking at the cost of the structure, and if we buy the panels, we're still going to have to pay someone to service them, either biannually or annually, depending on the system. And those costs will have to be attributed to that. And depending on what type of structure, because these and the other project we're moving forward, this is a rooftop. The other ones are canopies. And every structure is independent of each other, of how they were put together. And there isn't no two alike. So when you look at another comparison, for infrastructure cost, it's almost you can do a comparison, but there is a variable that's attributed to it.
Thank you. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, there's no upfront cost. It's going to save not a huge amount of money, but every dollar counts. It's helping the environment. It's there isn't the burden of maintenance that could come down the road. I know I've had that issue with the panels on our house, and the company's taking care of the maintenance. As Mr. Palini said, at the end of the lifespan, you're not going to have to worry about some big cost of decommissioning them. Makes a lot of sense to me. Councilor King, and then Councilor Stuart Morales, I see your hand up again.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think the idea of putting solar on our roofs makes lots of sense. And, we're probably a little late to the game, and that's so, but I'm not sure that's the reason why we should jump into the first offer. And that's what has surprised me as we've been into this a little bit deeper. I was surprised to hear that a couple of things. First of all, I disagree with Councilor Stuart Morales a little bit on the idea, just because it's being sponsored by this Power Options group, that means it's the way to go. I've seen lots of municipal conglomerates, for lack of a better term, and others that did not have nearly as good a deal if you went and did it yourself sometimes, especially in the area of power. I can remember decades ago when we were negotiating power, power contracts with the utility company. I don't know how you do it now, but it was not always at all cheapest to go with the consortium. Sometimes it was cheaper to go by yourself. But what I'm concerned about is, as much as I do support the project, is what Councilor Cannon raised, which surprises me. I mean, this is a way to go, and maybe it's the best way to go. But I can't believe we haven't done a side-by-side comparison of another approach of buying the panels ourselves and that type of thing. Because, theoretically, we should have the infrastructure to be able to do something like that if it was a much better deal for us. And particularly given the fact that the federal tax credit drives the cost of these things for these companies, it doesn't really make sense to me, since we don't pay federal taxes, we're federal tax exempt, why we would even be involved in the program that has anything to do with a federal tax credit, unless they list some sort of pass through of that credit, but it doesn't seem to be that. So for that reason, I think doing our due diligence, I think before we start kicking off, and I think what Mike said at the beginning too is true, we're probably going to, if we go this route here, we're going to go this route everywhere probably. I really think we should at least look a little bit deeper. As I say, I'm surprised we didn't, to the side-by-side different approaches. I don't know, hopefully it wouldn't take long, but I think, I think that has some merit in it. So I think it's a good idea. But I do think we just shouldn't take the first deal or because it works, because someone's, there's a lot of things that you can get for free that people pay for it and, all that type of stuff, but you pay somewhere. And, it almost sounds, when the deal sounds almost too good to be true, it usually is. And I just think with all the freeness we're getting, I suspect we're paying for it somewhere, and maybe we can find a place where we can get some of the benefit, or an approach where we can get some of the benefit.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly?
So in addition to the power purchase agreement, the private entity also pays personal property tax for this equipment, which is also something that we would not be doing as a municipality. It would be essentially personal property tax exempt because we don't pay personal property tax. We've negotiated out a pilot, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact dollar amount annually of the pilot, but we have negotiated out a fixed payment in lieu of taxes. It's really, for solar, it really is just a tax. We calculate that value of that into the levy, but the equipment then pays us property tax, personal property tax, because it's owned by a private entity and not owned by us.
Thank you. Other councilor comments? Councilor Cannon.
Yeah, Ms. Kelly, I believe you're referring to Exhibit A1, payment in lieu of personal property tax pilot amounts. Is that what you're referring to? Okay. In all of the 20 years, all of those payments are under $1,000. Mm-hmm. I mean, is this really, all due respect, ma'am, I'm asking for some depth and insight into, listen, when I've looked into this for residential and some commercial stuff, the PPA is really affordable for people that don't have the upfront capital to do the system. Typically, that's not an issue for a municipality because of how our finances are modeled and our ability to bond and 1,000 different reasons. If the reason to do this without digging deep into all of our different options that any reasonable consumer or commercial entity would do is because we get $918 the first year and a depreciating amount every year thereafter going down to $500 thereabouts, we just haven't done our homework. So I'm a little disappointed that if you're going to mention it and you didn't have the amounts handy, and I thankfully went to go look for it because I didn't realize how much the pilot, how low it was. I think, for $918 down to $515, I think we can spend a little time, and the solar companies want our business. They make it easy to weigh these different options. I just feel like we didn't ask the question, and I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I would like to see all of the different benefits and all of the different numbers that weigh into this. They typically do this work for us. It just seems we haven't asked. So instead of dwelling on that, why don't we go back out to the marketplace and see what our options are? It's an extraordinarily competitive marketplace. And while I appreciate the fact that I guess the consortium referenced in, let's nonprofits and churches and whatnot participate, their finances are remarkably different from a municipality. So maybe that type of consortium isn't, it's great for them because they fit into that category of not having the means to buy a system up front and bonding it. But a municipality we're just different. So if we could do our homework and look at the, when you buy if you're a residential customer with means and moderate means, you can finance the purchase of a system. It's almost always better than doing a PPA. So being a municipality with our bond rating, with our abilities to do all of these things, I just wish we could take a closer look at it. I'm just not confident that this is the way to go on every solar deal because this will become the template. So I don't know if you want a motion, Mr. Chairman, but I just feel like this right now is still kind of half baked. I'm on board with the concept. I think we're long overdue for solar, but as I drive by the McAuliffe Library for the next 20 years, I want to make sure that we got the best deal for Framingham. And as we start redoing the roofs that we talked about earlier in the meeting and putting solar on those roofs, I want to make sure that we're getting the return for our community over the next 20 years. If we don't spend the time doing this now, it's just never going to happen. And we'll do these deals out of habit, and they're just never going to be properly vetted. So I think the request is pretty clear. But if you want a motion, I'm happy to make one.
Thank you. Any other councilor comments? Ms. Kelly?
I just want to point out that the pilot is low for this because of the size of the system, and it's based on the value of the equipment that's being put in place. So it's a small system, but we've negotiated pilots even with our net metering agreements for privately owned solar facilities that are in the city, and some of those pay considerably more than $900 a year, including $36,000 per year for the site on top of Shoppers World, and we get a pilot for all of the panels that are on the ground on the state property that is around exit 13 and on the Mass Turnpike site. So they are all paying us pilot payments in lieu of taxes for personal property, because that equipment, as privately owned, becomes taxable. If they're selling their energy, those facilities become taxable as personal property.
I recognize that, but that's a completely different agreement than what we're talking about tonight. So while it's a pilot, it has nothing, and while there's sun involved, it has nothing to do with this kind of agreement. So what I would like to see is us just making sure that we've asked all the questions, which we haven't. So, Mr. Chairman, do you want a motion to refer this back to the sponsor?
Well, we could just put it on a future agenda. Mr. Luce, do you understand what Councilor Cannon's asking for? A side-by-side comparison.
A question, if I may, Mr. Chairman, for the chief, and forgive me if I get the title wrong, Ms. Pratt, the Chief Procurement Officer. Do I have that right? Would you help me understand the process that as Chief Procurement Officer you executed to arrive at this conclusion? Because it doesn't seem like we looked at all the options, and I'm just trying to understand the procurement process.
Oh, for this particular contract is actually exempt from Mass General Law 30B. So we did not have to do our own process. However, Power Options did do a robust RFP process of their own in 2015. They had 6 respondents, and Select Energy was the one that they ultimately chose. That process mimicked, if we did our own, mimicked that, and mimicked also the process that the state does as well for their procurement contracts that we're also able to tap into. So Framingham has the ability to tap into Power Options vendor that they chose, Select Energy, to enter into this agreement, which again followed a robust RFP process. So that original contract was issued for 3 years, and they had great success and feedback from the vendors that were using Select Energy, including many municipalities. So they actually approved another 3-year term for Select Energy to continue on with these type of programs.
Thank you, Ms. Pratt. One follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pratt, did you say that the robust process was conducted in 2015?
The original process was in 2015, yes. And as I stated before, they're a private organization, so they're not tied to the Mass General Law procurements like a city would be, but they did issue the procurement the same way that we would have issued our own. I actually read through it thoroughly, and they used all the same type of terms, evaluation criteria, and weighed all their evaluation criteria, minimum requirements, and pricing to be able to select the most advantageous proposal that would benefit their membership. And Power Options membership is 450 different organizations, many of which are municipalities through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So, and like I said before, the feedback and the success of Select Energy was such that Power Options was able to successfully issue another contract to them with the same type of terms they used in the first RFP process. So that contract goes through the end of 2022.
I appreciate the insight, Ms. Pratt. I feel like as I ask more questions, Mr. Chairman, I have more questions or I'm starting to reach conclusions that make me uncomfortable with the process thus far. It sounds like we haven't looked at it at all. We relied on a company that I'm sure is reputable, but I'm not familiar with them, who did a robust process 6 years ago. Any energy marketplace has changed dramatically over the course of 6 years. And while we refer to municipalities in other states, Massachusetts energy regulation is different from some of the other states mentioned. It just feels like this hasn't been, in an effort to get going quickly, and we didn't dig into the weeds here. And this is a 20-year agreement. So I don't want to drill down any further because these questions are not making our procurement process. I'm a little troubled that because this was exempt, we didn't do our due diligence, and that's the conclusion that I'm reaching. So I'd like to come back and I'd like to see a side by side. I'd like to feel more comfortable that we did our due diligence here, because this is either going to be a great deal for Framingham for 20 years or it's going to be a great deal for a developer for 20 years. This doesn't even feel like it's in the middle. So I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we refer it back to, I don't know, help me with the language, but action is needed.
If that's your preference, we won't take action on it. I'd be interested in hearing from Councilor Leombruno, because we haven't heard from you, and I would rather us move on this. I feel like we have a strong consensus among the professionals.
Are you comfortable with the procurement process, Mr. Chairman? We haven't looked at the other major option that we haven't looked at buying versus renting. I mean, it just hasn't been looked at. How help me get to the level of comfort for where you are. But I didn't realize Councilor Leombruno was waiting to speak. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Councilor Leombruno, go ahead.
So, I think it's a great idea. I was all on with this. It seems to be, I always felt like we were a little behind in this, and I think it's great. The only concern I have is I was hoping when I heard the $50,000 over 20 years, I was also thinking that it was going to be more of a savings. And, while it's no disrespect to anybody that has put a lot of work into this at all, I don't think that that's the issue. I think that the yield that we're getting versus a 20-year agreement, I also have concerns on that. We might, if we could get a side-by-side comparison, it might be the same thing. I don't want to, reinvent the wheel, or, this isn't we don't trust you, or that, we don't, this could be the best one. I think that, we have to look at a lot of things from the budget from May to now. I mean, we look, we have a $2.5 million deficit that we're dealing with right now. I mean, I heard the mayor's conversation earlier, and she said Framingham is fiscally good. And, a week ago, we were called hostage takers.
Councilor Leombruno, sorry to interrupt. Can we, I respect what you're saying, but can we just try and avoid just because it's not on the agenda.
Fair enough, and I appreciate that. I just think that we have to be really careful here, and I think that I don't know if I'm comfortable going into a 20-year agreement without a yield. I would like to see other. I would like a side by side to just see, and if this is the best deal, then this is the best deal we're going to get. But I just was hoping that we had exhausted other efforts, and so that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Mr. Keiser, did you want to comment?
It's a motion if for Mike.
Yeah, just 2 points I want to make. One on the procurement side. I wrote the 30B exemption in 1997 and got it into the electric restructuring law on these energy matters. And the reason being is those of us involved at that time knew these were going to be complex issues, complex procurements. And rather than tying these deals to the constraints of Chapter 30B, allowed the municipalities and other organizations to have the flexibility to work through these consortiums, through these agreements, to have a center of expertise organizations that are doing these type of these programs for municipalities and other organizations. So there was a reason why in the law we didn't want to do it through 30B. You get a better product and a better process doing it the way that Framingham has and most all the other cities and towns are doing in these programs. The other point I want to make is, and if I may refer to either Sean or Jim in regard, there was some reference to, going back out on the street to rebid this. And there's, I believe, an impact on doing that in the sense that we have some 2020 credits under this agreement that are being held over that we would lose. So if I may, either Sean or Jim, who have a lot more detail, so the question would be, what's the impact of rebidding this process? What do we lose from the current agreement that we have in place?
Thank you. Either of you can respond.
Sure, I can add to that. I think in particular, if we were to look at potentially another vendor that would install solar at the McAuliffe, I'm not sure what happens in the case of the SMART program, which is the incentive program for solar in Massachusetts. When that was filed, it was through Select Energy to lock in the incentive. That doesn't necessarily lock us into only using Select for the solar energy system there. But it does mean that we may have to reapply. And the SMART program is a declining block program, which means the further along the program progresses and more solar projects are enrolled in that process, the smaller the incentives for the solar energy system get. I know I harp on the different types of incentives that feed into these projects, but they really are, a very significant a component of the financing for these projects. And it's also a big reason why there's a lot of municipalities that utilize power purchase agreements, even when looking at, the cost of purchasing a system outright. And I apologize, I don't have the statistics for in Massachusetts, but I know in the Power Options program specifically, we had checked to see what level of participation there was with their solar program. And they've indicated that there are 32 municipalities that are involved with this solar program specifically, including the city of Haverhill, Medford, town of Hopkinton, and there's also various school districts too that have utilized this program for solar. So just, I guess to summarize, we would basically be, starting over again in terms of the state incentives. And so, to be honest, I'm not sure how that process would work out, but I think there's a potential that we would kind of lose our spot with what we've locked in the SMART program.
Thank you. Councilor Stuart Morales.
I think that I think that the recommendations of, the various people that we've heard of so far, knowing that the Director of Libraries has also sent us a letter asking us to support this program, that the Board of Library Trustees has also looked into this and is happy with it, that the sustainability coordinator, all of the financial benefits, which right now we have zero, right? We're not generating, we're not monetizing anything from our roof. The only thing that there's going to be no costs that the city would need to incur here. The only thing we're going to be getting is savings through our electrical usage and also the pilot money. The fact that the library is looking to incorporate this into their programming and use it as an educational tool, and also just the fact that this is such a small system, I have no desire to hold up the process, and I think that many of the counselors would agree with me on that. And so I'd like to make a motion that we refer this back to the city council for additional discussion and final vote.
Second that. Councilor comments. Councilor Cannon, and if anybody has any questions for the city solicitor, I know that there was a request to have Mr. Petrini attend. Councilor Cannon?
Yeah, and
Mr. Reddy, sorry, I do see you there.
That's kind of my point, Mr. Chairman. We've got the city solicitor, we've got Attorney Zaretti, we have the chief procurement officer, we have the chief financial officer, we have the director of planning, the director of capital projects and facilities, we have the chief operating officer. All of these folks are on this call at considerable expense, and we have no idea what Councilor Leombruno asked for, a side-by-side comparison of the two major ways a municipality retains solar. How, that's kind of the point there. And I think it's important because Councilor Stuart Morales referenced the support from the library director and their board of trustees. I have the same conceptual support as well. We're all on board for solar. But as members of the finance subcommittee, we have the responsibility to go through the details to make sure that what is in front of us has been vetted and is the best deal for the city of Framingham's taxpayers. And it very well may be, but it is clear that it hasn't been done. When we're looking at things that are 6 years old nearly, and all of the things that have come up tonight, we're all on board for solar, but this just hasn't been looked at. And in terms of giving, and I think, Sean, you've done a terrific job. I'm very, very impressed with the work that you do. And this isn't, frankly, this isn't your job. You shouldn't have to vet contracts and answer a lot of the questions that you're asking tonight. That's why we have, procurement and finance and attorneys and all of that. I think you've done a great job, Sean. I don't think we've given you the tools that you need to be able to conclude that this has nothing to do with you, that what's in front of us in 2021 is the best deal going forward. And we have to be fastidious on this one because this will be the model going forward. But to do this without getting that side-by-side comparison that Councilor Leombruno and others have asked for is just not doing our job. And I'll leave the comments there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor King.
Thank you. So I didn't have very strong feelings about this coming in tonight because, I'm in favor of trying to go down the solar route. Like I said, I think we're a little late on it. But after hearing the discussion and hearing what hasn't been done, I just have no idea why we wouldn't want at least to have that level of due diligence to compare a couple of different approaches. We picked one approach and we went down, and because it's like almost a break-even situation, we went down that road, we're going to stay down there. What is the harm of a side-by-side comparison? I mean, I think we're not doing our due diligence as a committee. It's like buying a car, it's like when you go in there, you don't, when they ask you how much you want to spend per month and you decide to buy your car based on that, you're making a mistake. And the same thing seems to happen right here. It's like, oh, it's free, we can do it. Maybe there's a lot better way to do it, and maybe there's not. If there's not, then we can all feel good about this way. If there is, what's wrong with pursuing that? I just don't understand that. That's the part I'm confused about, why we want to just jump because we went down this route. So,
thank you. Councilor Leombruno.
So I feel the same way. George basically said exactly what I was thinking. And Mike, I mean, I understand that everybody wants this. We want this. We're not against this at all. I'm not against it. I just was hoping to see a bigger savings, and I thought that I thought this was like again, like George said, I kind of went in figuring we're just going to do it. But hearing that this is the amount of the amount of the 20-year contract, I just thought, in 2021 that we would have a little bit more of a savings. And I just question, is this the best that we can do? If it is, then I'm all in. If this is the best deal we're going to get, let's just do it. But if we don't have anything to prepare to, I feel better. My point earlier is that, we have to really, we're in charge of making sure that we spend every penny accordingly, and that we see where the money's going. And, if this is the best deal, let's do it. But I don't know why we can't just take a look at a side by side. That would be my ask.
Thank you. I'm curious, in the interest of, the Finance Committee's time and the all the administrators present tonight, if members would be interested in supporting Councilor Stuart Morales's motion with an amendment that this side-by-side comparison be provided to the full City Council, so that we can provide some progress, a little momentum here. Because I think my concern is that, we asked the city solicitor and the chief procurement officer to be here. I don't know that side-by-side comparison request was made explicitly last time, and that, if we come back to this subcommittee and, among our many other agenda items, that it could get pushed further and further down the road. So,
I'd accept that as a friend.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Cannon.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think it was a safe assumption based on municipal procurement processes, no matter state regulation or not, that a certain level of due diligence is exercised. So I think it's a reasonable assumption that had been done prior to coming with a proposal to the Finance Subcommittee. So I don't know that it would have been reasonable for us to ask, because I just would have assumed we had looked at all options. What I would ask, though, is because I think we're on board conceptually, and I think based on what I'm hearing, a number of us would feel more comfortable knowing that some of that work had been done, and knowing that these solar companies are in the business of selling solar, and I would imagine they want to do business and establish a profitable relationship with the city of Framingham that will flourish for years. I would bet that they would get back to us pretty quickly with some options, and we could have a sense. I just, with all the professionals on the call, I'd wonder if Councilor Stuart Morales would consider either withdrawing or revising his motion, so to give them the opportunity to look at all the different options and then come back to us so we can vote unanimously to support something before the City Council. I would just rather, I'd feel really good if we had all that information and we could have a unanimous vote before the City Council instead of getting into a whole thing about why it was whatever the vote was. I just think all of us would feel better if we had all of that basic information, and I think we can get it pretty quickly, or at the pace that the team wants it or is able to provide it. And then you can make your motion, which I would imagine would be supported unanimously. Councilor Stuart Morales, would you consider withdrawing your motion for those reasons and allowing them to take another swing?
I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that if we've already asked, for them to provide us the additional information that you'd like when this goes to the full City Council. And, at this point, we've had this subject on our to-do list for going on 2 months. And it's not right. We need to have, if we say that we're committed to the environment and that we want to make some progress in this area, and we all agree that we're far behind, well, this is our opportunity to show it. There's a lot, as you said, there's a lot of professionals here, which we pay as a city of Framingham to advise us on these things. They're presenting something that they didn't say, this is good enough, let's send it to the City Council. I'm sure that they're giving us what they think is the best. And so at what point, what is it going to take for us to take the advice of the professionals that we pay? I think that that carries weight within in itself. The fact that all of these people are here supporting this, no one's mentioned any objection to us approving an easement, which is what we're doing here. Not any financial contract. The contract, that's not what we're talking about here tonight. So I understand that as a finance subcommittee, we want to make sure that this is in the best interest of Framingham. But right now, that's what the recommendation is. That's what their opinion is. And this isn't going to come at any expense to the city. It's only creating revenue or a different source of reducing expenses for taxpayers. So there's a benefit here. It's all benefit. So I just don't understand the reluctance. I think that we really should put a little bit of faith in the people that work for our city, that they're presenting us with the right solution here, and vote on this. And if you're not, all I'm saying is let's send this back to the full council so that people can chime in. I think that it's a real disservice to our city to keep holding this up. We're going on 2 months now.
Thank you. Are there any concerns or objections from the non-elected members of the meeting? I wasn't sure if there was. Ms. Kelly, you have an objection, or probably not?
Councilor King also had his hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
All right, let me go to Councilor King, and then Ms. Kelly will go to you. Councilor King?
Yeah, so I don't know why we keep going around on this. Maybe we should just vote. I mean, Caesar, I don't think there's a problem. I think the only problem is, I don't think there's a problem in taking professional advice, but to their own credit, they didn't evaluate it. That's the case. I mean, they may have had reasons for it. I'm not saying they made a bad decision not to evaluate it, but after working through that, I think seems to be some of us at least who think that should be evaluated. Why should we just? So if they came in here and said we evaluated everything, I can see your point, but they didn't. They didn't look at the approach. They took one street and they went down that street. So I think we're just asking for a broader based evaluation. You also make the point about the contract, which is bothersome to me, because this is kind of an end around of the contract. Excuse me. In reality, we should be approving this contract. It just that there's a loophole from a former town meeting vote that we should just rescind going forward, like we talked about, to avoid that. So I mean, so even though you're right, in this instance, we are technically only being asked to approve the easement. It's a reasonable thing that we look at the contract, because in reality, that would normally be our vote.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly or Mr. Luce? Ms. Kelly, when you go ahead.
So I just wanted to comment that these programs are designed to bundle small, not industrial sized systems together to create that larger purchasing power, which attracts the solar companies to come and bid and install these smaller systems that by themselves would not have the same buying power. And so, that's part of why these coalitions exist, these collaborative purchasing agreements exist. And so if we do our own procurement, it's not going to have the same purchasing power as a bundle of grouped entities, 450 organizations that all have small to medium sized projects, and they all get bundled together to enhance that purchasing power.
Can I ask a brief question about that, a brief follow-up on that comment?
Sure.
Ms. Kelly, are our employees part of the MMA health insurance program?
No. Part of the MMA health insurance? No.
Yeah, they're not.
We're part of the group.
Right, but right. Why? Because the MMA health insurance program, which is a group of communities bundled together to get a better deal. We've never been a member of that, have we?
Of health insurance? No.
Right.
We were a member.
My point is that's a coalition of communities bundled together to get a better deal that we don't use because it's not as good a deal. So just because it's a bundle together doesn't make it a good deal. That's a perfect example.
The GIC is a bigger bundle.
But even before the GIC, we never went through it.
Because we're the same.
Because we're.
The point I'm trying to say is.
That's why we went to the GIC.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is But when I'm trying to use an analogy here, that every consortium is not necessarily a good deal or the best deal. That's my analogy. But even if you want to get off the GIC idea and go back to even before the GIC, Framingham still never used MMA because we got a better deal on our own. So it doesn't always work.
Thank you. Are you confident that it wouldn't be a better deal to purchase the panels? And if so, why are you confident that this is the better option? Either Sean, Mr. Luce, or Ms. Kelly.
I can speak to that. Thank you, Councilor. So I apologize. I was looking through my notes, seeing if I could find that information. Early on, I did do some early analysis regarding the difference between PPAs and outright purchase, and as I've kind of indicated leading up to this, those other incentives are really instrumental to the cost of a system, and depending on whether the system is behind the meter or in front of the meter, PPAs are different for residential and commercial customers. For residential customers, they definitely offer the advantage of, the no upfront cost is often the biggest one. But for municipalities, even, as you start looking at larger systems, and I think a reason that they're a lot more popular, amongst even, neighboring communities. I know Natick is a community that uses power purchase agreements as well for the solar installations they have at their facilities. One of the reasons that they are popular is because they allow cities to take advantage of those those tax credits. So we were in looking at it from a high level. It just seemed like the PPA was the better option based on kind of that fact of what we could take advantage of through them, and in addition the fact how prevalent they were across municipalities. And then if I could just make another brief comment, I just wanted to thank everybody that's on this call as well, for just throughout the whole process. Everyone's been instrumental in looking at the agreement and assisting with the process. So just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Cannon, and then I see Mr. Petrini's hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean, you mentioned the tax credits again, but I thought I heard from Ms. Kelly that we don't get the tax credits. I'm hearing two different stories again. What is
no? Oh, I apologize. Just to, and I think this is what Mary Ellen was getting at. So if we were to purchase the panels on our own, we would not get them directly through a power purchase agreement. A developer like Select Energy, which is a taxable entity, they can take advantage of those, and they do feed into the PPA rate. It's a big reason why we were very concerned about the timing with this. We've worked very closely, understanding that there were a lot of moving pieces. We weren't sure when we were going to be able to get this before the council. I'd be happy to talk about some of the details.
I get it.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. Here's the thing. Fundamentally, a municipality has phenomenal credit. When we're going through this consortium, which is not exclusive to government entities, as I look at power options, I'm seeing religious organizations, cultural institutions. We get mixed in with their credit weight. A municipality just has different terms and different resources. I don't want to go around. We're not ready to move forward on this. We haven't done the due diligence. And I hope that you're right when it comes back, but I'm just collectively feeling that we just haven't looked at it. It's like we keep looking at the website trying to find other reasons to move forward with this, but we haven't fundamentally done a reasonable exercise in any sort of procurement process, not the one required by the state, but our own, just to see what's the best option out there. When we're relying on things from 2015, I think at this point, let's get them to go back and look at least an option that's been looked at in 2021, not 2015, and let's send the 2021 option to the council. And beyond that, I'd make a motion to adjourn at this point and give them the opportunity to get the work done.
All right. Well, thank you. We're not going to do that quite yet. Attorney Petrini, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we have a motion on the table as well.
I just wanted to emphasize that when the contracts were presented to procurement and to Mr. Laws, that my office did carefully review and worked on inserting pro-Framingham provisions into the contract, including the decommissioning bond, changes to the indemnity language, default language, and changes to the easement as well. So I just wanted to clarify that, but I know we're talking about bigger issues in terms of the manner of selection, but the contracts were reviewed and pro-Framingham changes were added.
Follow-up question for the city solicitor, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petrini, it's great to have you here, and thank you and Ms. Zaretti for being here this evening. But I would imagine that even if we're doing a purchase, likely from a similar developer, if not the same one, you and your talents would have the ability to put in similar language as well. So yes, I don't think that's unique to this. My issue is really the process for evaluating the terms of the deal. I don't want to dwell too much on it. It raises more questions than it answers, and I'm quite uncomfortable. Like Councilor King said at the beginning, I didn't have strong feelings about this going in. I was enthusiastic about the concept, but I just thought the job would have been done more. So let's have our procurement experts go back. Another cat sighting. I like the cat sightings. I'm trying to keep my dog entertained here. It's not working, but I like to see the cat sighting. Thank you, Ms. Zaretti. Give them the opportunity to look at this with fresh numbers, not things that were based on 2015. I think we've all learned a great deal, and then we can unanimously, I would hope, present something to the city council that we can all get excited about. So I would ask that Councilor Stewart Morales extend to the professional team the courtesy of allowing them to do a little further research with some fresh numbers based on current market numbers in 2021 and the circumstance that we're in versus what was a lifetime ago financially, 2015. So that's the courtesy,
Thank you.
Request that I would make there, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't see any other councilor hands up, so we'll vote on Councilor Stewart Morales' motion, which is to forward this on to the City Council, conditional on Mr. Luce and Ms. Kelly providing a side-by-side comparison for the full council.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that we need to vet that document. The Finance Subcommittee may have questions about what we learned from that process. So,
well,
I'm sorry?
I encourage you to vote against the motion then, but I think that's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it is stated in the motion.
It's disappointing. I mean, that just seems to be circumventing the duties of the Finance Subcommittee, whose subject matter is quite focused. So it's our job, our purview to look at that. And I don't know that we would consider any other decades-long agreement that's going to be the first of many without having it vetted by the Finance Subcommittee. Why do we want to establish a precedent where we're not carefully looking at all of the information? If new information comes back, it should go through the Finance Subcommittee. Otherwise, are we going to make a motion before the City Council to refer the new data? I mean, something is different between 2015 and 2021. There's going to be new information. Are we going to then refer it back and start over with the city, with the Finance Subcommittee? I mean, that just seems unwise. Let them go do some work and come back to us, and then let's hopefully refer unanimously to the council, knowing that the best deal is in place.
Thank you.
Help me understand why you have a problem with that, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, again, my concern is that we are standing in the way of a project that to me is a no-brainer. You know, there's no upfront costs. It's saving the city money. It's supporting the environment, which to me is a critical issue and it needs to be attacked with as much fervor as the financial one.
But you're not.
We have, excuse me, I'm still speaking. We have, unanimous support among the CFO, the COO, the sustainability officer, the director of the libraries, the facilities manager, chief procurement officer, and I apologize if I'm missing anybody. So, I mean, at a certain point, it just seems like it's more of a obstruction than an oversight role.
What's the obstruction?
But excuse me, I'm not finished.
Well,
but that said, I think from my perspective, let's allow them to address that concern in writing, which I think they've done in a spoken way tonight, and bring it to the full council so that we can make some progress on this.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for answering my question, but let's be cognizant that there is a precedent with the administration of providing information and decisions being made, perhaps too hastily, that have had, even in the short term, even in the last year, pretty detrimental consequences for the fiscal state of the municipality. So us not carefully weighing any information that comes with us, certainly information that's going to have a 20-year impact, I think is unwise. I'm glad that you have the unwavering trust of the administration. I hope I come to that conclusion as well. I envy the position that you're in, but I think we should give them the opportunity to look at the numbers, not based on 2015, which is what they're telling us we have, but based on the current marketplace today. So we can move forward, not just with a project we feel good about and can support unanimously. I think as chair of the finance committee, that's the fiduciary responsibility that you have. And I would ask again that Councilor Stewart Morales consider withdrawing for this time his motion and then make the motion when they come back. And I would support that motion, and I bet we would unanimously at that time.
Thank you. Are there any other councilor comments? Okay, Councilor Stewart Morales.
The other precedent that I'm concerned about setting here is that we become a bottleneck for making progress on environmental issues. And that's what we're doing here. There's no value really being added here. And at best, there might be an immaterial impact to the questions that have been raised. So we've had this for 2 months. We haven't, going on 2 months, excuse me. And I'm not saying that we end the discussion tonight. What I'm saying is, let's show some progress here. So let's show some good faith, and let's send this to the council so we can finalize our discussions and make take a vote there. I think that's not a lot to ask.
Thank you. Any other councilor comments? Councilor King.
Yeah, I don't agree with sending to the council incomplete. I mean, it's just not the process. The rules committee wouldn't send the bylaws to us half complete. I don't think we should do this. So it's up to the committee to do it if we want to, but I don't think we should.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other councilor hands, so we'll take a vote on. Councilor Cannon, did you have a comment before we vote?
Yeah, just the last point. We're not finding out. I just wish I could understand how you're coming to the conclusion that at best it's immaterial, or at worst it's immaterial. Forgive me if I'm paraphrasing. We're simply asking to find out, is it better if we rent or buy? And that hasn't been done. So yeah, it's been sitting on a calendar for a while, but it's not our responsibility to get that information to us in a timely fashion. It just hasn't been done. I mean, if you want to vote. But I agree with Mr. King. It's just that it is subverting the process, and it is inconsistent and incongruous with the responsibility that we have. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I know I've said that like 5 times tonight, but I'm a process guy. So
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other councilor hands, so we'll vote on Councilor Stewart Morales' motion, which is to forward this on to the City Council, conditional on receiving the side-by-side analysis as requested. Councilor King?
No.
Yes. Councilor Cannon?
No.
Councilor Stewart Morales? I believe that was a yes. I didn't hear it.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Leombruno?
Yeah.
All right, so that fails 3-2. So,
Mr. Chairman,
I think we can put this on a future agenda, but I'll talk to Mr. Luce and Ms. Kelly about scheduling that.
I move
Second.
All right, that was the last item on the agenda anyway.
I know.
So motion is to adjourn. Councilor Leombruno?
Yes.
Councilor Stewart Morales?
Yes.
Councilor Cannon?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor King?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thanks
Thanks everybody for joining us tonight.